Fake Safety Podcast with Vance and Bart.
It's a trap, and there's no comfort fitting in a fake safety that no one believes in.
We were talking earlier. What do you think about this? I think we should have one of those. You remember the debt clock? Do you remember that? Who remembers the debt clock?
You talking about Death Clock, the metal band?
No, the debt clock. You just watch the debt go up. Blah, 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 whatever. I think we should do something similar. I think we should do Puerto Rico, aid given. Ukraine, aid given by the U.S. Debt clock. Just watch those numbers fly on one of the two. Guess which one? I'll leave that up to the listener to guess which one. But what we have right now is some wisdom by one of our oldest sitting. What the fuck is he? What's Bernie Sanders? Is he a senator? Or is he a congressman?
Is a senator.
Okay. I have totally into our government.
So let this sink in. Bernie Sanders has been in politics longer than the debt clock has been in existence, because he was the mayor of Burlington in the 80s and then went on to be a U.S. senator for Vermont. So the debt clock, which went up in 89, went up after he had already been in politics for nearly a decade. That guy hasn't had a real job since a decade before the debt clock went up.
No, he admittedly has never held a real job, according to him.
Weird flex, but okay.
I very much wish that I did not have to say what I am going to say. But the most serious challenge facing our country and the entire world, far and away, is in fact the existential threat of climate change. That is not the opinion of Bernie Sanders, who failed physics in college. That is what the scientific community is telling us in a virtually unanimous voice. The latest report from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, is very clear, and it is very foreboding. If the United States, China, Russia, and the rest of the world do not act extremely aggressively in cutting carbon emissions, our planet will face enormous and irreversible damage. In fact, the world that we will be leaving to our kids and to future generations will become increasingly unhealthy and uninhabitable. That's not Bernie Sanders. That is the virtual unanimous conclusion of the scientists who study this issue. But the truth is, we don't need the scientists or another study to tell us what's happening. We see it with our own eyes here in the United States and all over the world. The American people today and people throughout the globe are seeing the devastating impact climate change is having on their communities and their families with their own eyes. That is what they are seeing right now as I speak. And please understand, and maybe the most important point I want to make this morning, is that everything being equal, what is happening right now will become worse and worse and worse. This is not, oh boy, we had a torrential rain. Oh boy, ain't it hot? Everything being equal, what we are seeing today will become worse in years to come. Let's just take a brief look at what's happening right now in the United States and around the world. The past 8 years have been the hottest years in recorded history. Right now, the western half of the United States is experiencing its worst drought in over 1,200 years. Right now, in California, Nevada, and Utah, they are experiencing record-breaking heat waves. Historic rainfall and devastating floods took place over a 5-week stretch this summer in eastern Kentucky, eastern Illinois, St. Louis, Missouri, Death Valley, California, and Dallas, Texas. These are supposed to be a once-in-a-thousand-year torrential rainfalls, and we're seeing them coming all together within a few weeks. Right now, Europe is experiencing its worst drought in over 500 years. And let's remember, when we talk about drought, it's not only, boy, is it hot, it impacts agricultural production and the quantity and quality of food that we eat. Mr. President, a massive heat wave in Spain and Portugal killed more than 2,000 people in July. Historically hot weather in London and China literally melted bridges, airplane runways, and rooftops. Let me repeat that. The extremely hot weather in London and in China this summer literally melted bridges, rooftops, and airplane runways, with all of the consequences that that has.
Bernie Sanders, the guy who's for the poor guy, goes, why would we be producing the cheapest forms of energy so people don't have to pay so much for energy?
I just don't know where to start.
Well, he hates poor people, obviously. Let's start there. Because everything he's proposing just murders poor people.
So if you're standing at a podium like that, addressing a room of people who are half interested in what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
and you find yourself flipping through multiple pages of a speech you've prepared,
Mm-hmm.
it shows that you don't know how to edit.
Bernie Sanders does not know how to edit. But what Bernie Sanders does do is he follows the left of the left. He's a megaphone for lefties of leftness. And I think even older school lefties too.
I don't even think that's...
Well, now it's corporations. I'm sorry.
I was about to say, like, I don't think that's fair to actual lefties.
You're right, because what's considered left today is just corporate welfare shit. So yeah, that's what he is now. He's a corporate. Where he pretended to scream for, and he still pretends to scream for the little guy. What he's actually doing is proposing deals that are welfare for corporations. So, and I guess he hides under that idea that, oh, I'm for the little guy. Somehow that works. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Doesn't work for me. But to get to the climate change thing, we're talking about, okay, assume it's all right. Everything he said's true. We'll get to the point where, where we're talking about what's not true, how he's manipulating things. But let's just assume it's true. Our grandkids my kids are going to die. Or if not die, live in some apocalyptic future because climate change, right? And climate change that's not climate change, but like man-made climate change because of fossil fuels. So many restrictions against nuclear. So many advances in nuclear power have been made since the last reactors. I mean, we can We can improve upon this technology so much, but yet it's restricted because it's dangerous. Well, danger is relative, right? So if we're all dying in 12 years and we can build a nuclear reactor here that has the potential if a whole bunch of things go wrong, it'll kill a town, but it'll save the fucking planet. Why the fuck aren't we doing nuclear? You know why we're not doing nuclear? Because it's not goddamn happening because of our fucking power plants and shit. It's not fucking climate change. When I was a kid, we were freezing to death. We were all going to freeze to fucking death. And you can look it up today. There's a speech by another, not Bernie Sanders, but by another senator, whatever. And he's got his experts on there. And they're talking about it's getting colder every fucking year. And there's no end in sight. And the funny thing about this speech, this article, is it was done the coldest year. It only got warmer after that. And we were all getting cold because we used hairspray, Aquanet in particular. And it begs to wonder, like, what did Aquanet not do? What did a chemical manufacturer for Aquanet not donate to a campaign?
And can we get it back? Because clearly we need to start cooling again.
Absolutely, we do. Let's all spray Aquanet. Big hair is back, bitches. Save the planet. That's what I'm talking. Because if it was real, or if the people screaming that it's real believed it was real. Let's say it is real, but the people screaming that it's real, people in power don't believe it's real. Bernie Sanders doesn't believe it's real. The people in power don't believe it's real. Because if they believed it was real, nuclear power would be going on, man. That shit would be happening. And not only that, they wouldn't be buying property on the goddamn coastline when they think that it's going to flood in the next 10 years.
Now let's give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they're being hyper practical and understanding how people react to things, because you're right. Whether it was them and their propaganda, or if nuclear is legitimately very dangerous, volatile, and a hard sell to the populace, the idea for them is, okay, well, fossil fuels aren't the answer, but let's explore wind, let's explore solar, let's explore these other channels before we have to resort to nuclear. That would be the argument there, because nuclear is a hard sell.
I think you're getting to the point. I think that's exactly what it is, except for let's throw the sinister aspect in there that we all know exists, and we know that there's a bank of money, of wealth that's being sucked out of the productive class of humanity. The people who make the world a better place. And how do we get that to direct to our wallets? Well, solar, wind, it's not really a viable energy source. But,
well, to be fair, neither was fossil fuel when it was like no energy source is efficient enough to pay for itself upon discovery. Like, it's just a far less mature.
Right. But how did fossil fuel get there?
By investment. And that's what I'm saying. Like,
no, not by government investment. It got there by capitalism, by people investing in fossil fuel for lamps It slowly built its way to where it got to be efficient enough, and then it built a nation. And then what we ask now is for poor nations that aren't as developed as us to go, no, you guys still continue to starve to death, and you're not going to get the same opportunities we had. And fuck y'all.
Well, this is where the subsidy comes in. So we would take some of our wealth and invest it in those nations.
But we don't have any wealth. We're
I don't know
in
that
debt.
that's true.
We're in debt. No, we have wealth. The people who are offering money don't have any. The government has no money. They're in debt. Wealth is production. I produce. I have wealth. I give money value. Without me, money has no value. US dollars have no value.
But the government, whether you recognize their authority or not, has an idea. And let's look at the merit of the idea as opposed to the merit of the authority telling it to you.
Okay.
But their idea is that you take that wealth, take your position and arguably duty as being someone of higher means to subsidize the efforts of those who were not fortunate enough to be born into the first world and make investments so that they can not have to starve, and then we can also save the planet for everyone.
We can say these things. Let's look at a track record. What do we do when we go into a place and invest money?
Like Social Security, or
Let's go to Somalia. We're there right now. We're investing a lot of money in Somalia. What are we doing in Somalia? We're propping up a government. What kind of government are we propping up? I'll answer that. A dictatorship. What kind of dictatorship are we propping up? Is this a dictatorship, but it's, a really nice guy, and we should put his face on some tie-dye shirts and walk around like he's some hero, like somewhere in Cuba or something? No, we're not.
oh, he could go on all the money for the Commonwealth.
Yeah, we could.
Queen's got to be replaced.
Right. No, we're not propping up that guy. What we're propping up is a rapist warlord guy who is known to skin children to scare his enemies. Let me explain to you what this is. I'm talking about not killing a child and taking their skin off. I'm talking about telling somebody who does it, which is another fucked up thing, to pull the skin off of a child while this child is still living. His enemies might be bad guys too.
They might be worse.
Yeah.
But I think, to be fair, that's foreign relations, right? We talk about these other nations and foreign affairs gets complex. So let's say instead of investing directly in these other nations, we instead invest in local organizations, local green jobs.
We've seen that work out, right?
As we've discussed in previous episodes, you and I are both part of the MAGA crowd, I suppose, because
because we think that Donald Trump should be brought up on war crimes.
I mean, if that doesn't make America great again, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
But because we're part of that, we should appeal to them as well, which means America first, more American jobs, American companies. And I'll tell you, America is rotten with green companies. So all these like renewable and sustainable energy jobs and companies, let's say we don't invest elsewhere. We invest completely here, our own soil.
I think the
green
real
jobs.
question is, why is America rotten with everybody saying that we're sustainable, we're renewable? Is it because of the customer, or is it because they're looking for a handout from the state?
Or altruism.
I'm asking. What do you think it really is? I ask you, listener, to think about what I'm saying here. Are they appealing to you? Or are they appealing to somebody else?
But let's suppose that they are trying to make a difference while also making a profit. Because think about it like this. Think about when we talk about new businesses all the time, whether that be, you opened a restaurant or you opened a factory.
But see, new businesses aren't the ones getting this money.
But hear me out here.
Established businesses.
But hear me out.
Corporations.
Businesses, by and large,
Big
do not turn a
businesses.
profit when they start.
No, they don't. It's like 2 years. If they're going to be successful.
On
It's
average,
the
it's
average.
5.
Is it?
If
Well, there's a
you
lot
are
more of a
doing-
bureaucracy. When I started doing business, I'm old man. It was 2 years. We didn't have as many taxes and licenses and bullshit like that. So
But anyone who goes into business has that hope that they will at some point turn a profit.
no shit.
So why is that different for the folks who are going into it saying, okay, well, I'm going to make something that's sustainable and has a positive impact on the environment and hope that in some number of years I will become profitable as well.
Right. We hope. Yeah. I'm going to make something that I think that the government will force people by gunpoint to buy in the future. As opposed to, I'm looking to build something that I think people will want to buy in the future. There's two different things, man. Like, you're appealing to the government. See, that's the difference. That's why there's uncertainty in the world. That's why people don't know where to invest. They don't know what to save because there is that government, I will change things on a whim type shit. So what you're talking about is companies that they're not in it to, their heart might be in creating better energy sources, but because the market is so distorted, the only way they can go into like doing green stuff, they're like, oh, fucking wind and solar. Like, there could be something completely different to do, but it's not a thing that they can get funding for. So they're not going to do it because government is stealing money and putting it into the things that the congressmen and whatever they own those companies, and that's what they're doing. It doesn't have to work. The point is, it doesn't work. They can do it longer. The worse off, the further away it is from working, the more money they can suck out of the people. The better it is for them to force our tax dollars to go towards. Because it's not natural. It's not funded naturally. That's the point. Like, I'm not saying that wind and solar won't ever work. I'm saying if it's not natural, it's not going to fucking work because the incentive is for it not to fucking work. So if you want this shit to work, you got to get it on the free market and you got to get the goddamn government out of it. I mean, nuclear could be in our pockets by now if it wasn't for fucking the government. Who knows? Lithium ion bullshit. I got a nuclear fucking battery. My shit's good, rich.
But again, going back to the world stage, if the market can't afford that investment initially, we could subsidize that. So again, we don't invest.
Wait, no, the market can't afford. We are the market. Anything stolen from us is stolen out of the market. It was in the market and then stolen by a government. So the market could afford it because the government doesn't produce anything. That's what you're forgetting. Like every single dollar stolen out of the market was in the goddamn market. It didn't have any value without production. So it is stolen. And not only is it stolen, but it's stolen production too. Like it's more than just taking a dollar out of it. You're taking productivity out of it too. So I don't know. You could call it $1.50 for every dollar stolen out. It's huge because not only that, it sways public ideas from coming forward. Because now I got a pretty good idea, but I'm not going to do it because I just don't feel like making that risk. Where because I got to invest in business licenses and this and that, and then I gotta apply with whatever business bureau, and then I gotta deal with all that shit. I'm out of work for a month just chasing down different people to pay, basically. I've done all that. You can see why it discourages good ideas from coming forward.
So I think the global conversation could be its own separate item, but we're also way into solution mode already without even talking about the problem, which I think you hinted at before. But let's go back to the core problem that we're trying to solve and even see if these solutions are even at the point where we would be bringing them onto the table. So let's talk about these. Let's talk about the melting of bridges, rooftops, and runways. What is your take there?
Well, I think you should repeat that for theatrical.
Oh, yes. Yes, I think he did. I think he did say it twice. He said literally melting, or literally melted, bridges, rooftops, and runways. Oh my.
If we're talking about bridges, rooftops, and runways melting in a location, I think we should find the common denominator.
They're melting. They're all melting.
They are melting. So let's think about bridges. Let's go back to bubble guppies. Anybody got kids listening? Let's think about bridges, runways, and rooftops. Right? What are they made with? Well, I can think of asphalt, tar, rock, and tar mixed together in different ways to create different products. So flat tops roofs tend to be done with tar and riverstone. And roadways and bridges tend to be done with granite, gravel, and tar. Otherwise known as pea gravel. And that tends to be called asphalt. So, for all you bikers out there, Metallica listeners, and
Pee Wee Herman fans.
That's right. What happens when you go in the middle of summer to J.C. Penney's to buy your new leather pants? Do you put your kickstand down in the hot parking lot without making sure something's underneath it, or going over near the curb so you can put your kickstand down on the concrete instead of the blacktop? Or are you one of those people who just likes to pick your bike up off the tarmac or asphalt when you come
Wait, is
out
that
of
real?
T?
This is like a common thing that people with
Yes.
bikes would know?
Yes, almost everybody who's driven a bike in the South or any hot climate knows if you're in an asphalt parking lot, you don't put your kickstand down on the asphalt because the footprint of your kickstand is very small compared to the weight of your bike. So when that asphalt gets hot, the tar, it becomes more liquefied and it will sink in, and slowly your bike just leans over and then laying on its side.
So you mean this has been really common for like the last,
My whole life. My whole life.
and you're 8 years old?
83 years old.
So what you're saying is bridges, rooftops, and runways are terrible places to park your motorcycle?
They are. And that's basically what Bernie Sanders said too. But he said it very scary, like, like we're all going to freeze to death. And then everybody's like, oh, well, big hair sucks. So they stopped, doing big hair. Think about how hot the girls would be today if they didn't fuck around with Aquanet.
We didn't really use Aquanet. We were a Soul Glow family.
Where are you now? The lube.
Like the museum in Paris?
It's a trap.